and they should have indicted, and those people should have gone to jail. But the grand jury was not functioning. You can talk about the Federal Reserve Bank scam and all of those different scams out there in government, but until we get these registered voters out there to understand their power, their responsibility, their duty on the grand juries, we are not going to see the solutions. We're not going to see the change that we must see. There is a widow woman in North Carolina. Her husband was murdered by the government, agents of the government, and they are free. They are not being prosecuted because Joe Sixpack, sitting on the grand jury, his wife sitting on the grand jury, does not understand her responsibility or her duty. They do not understand what the grand jury is all about because they have never been taught. The government doesn't want you to know. The IRS doesn't want you to know. The IRS, they do not want you to know the truth. Now, I have a copy of one of their manuals. This is an IRS manual that has been out a number of years. This is just a copy of it. In the very beginning of it, there's a foreword. The foreword for this manual was written by the Commissioner of the Internal Revenue Service. And here's what he says in the foreword, the very first line. Our tax system is based on individual self-assessment and voluntary compliance. Voluntary compliance? We all know what the word voluntary means. But people are not volunteering in this country to file income tax returns. They are filing because of coercion. They're filing because of fear. They're filing because we have a government that has to use fear and intimidation to be able to function. Now, here's the part that really bothered me the most when I first read this. The last paragraph. The material contained in this handbook is confidential in character. It must not, under any circumstances, be made available to persons outside of the service. This is a public servant, ladies and gentlemen, who is saying, well, I'm going to hide something from my masters. I'm going to hide something. I'm going to keep my master in the dark. What is this? This is an unfaithful servant, isn't it? This is an employee who should not be your employee. This is an employee that should be fired because this employee is violating your trust and your confidence. Now, why would they say that this book should not get into the hands of anyone outside of the IRS? This is what it says in this one section, books and records of an individual. An individual taxpayer may refuse to exhibit his books and records for examination on the ground that compelling him to do so might violate his right against illegal search and seizure under the Fifth Amendment. No, I got that wrong. I got on the wrong line. That compelling him to do so might violate his right against self-incrimination under the Fifth Amendment and constitute an illegal search and seizure under the Fourth Amendment. What is this? This is the Fourth and Fifth Amendment they're talking about. That's part of our great Bill of Rights, isn't it? I just turned the page here, and here's a section on constitutional law. It says constitutional protections are provided in the Fourth, Fifth, and Sixth Amendments. They know. They don't want us to know, do they? We have to communicate with Joe Sixpack out here. We have to get to him and educate him. Inform him. Get the truth to him. The IRS does not want anyone outside of the service to see this book because this book has the truth in it. And they cannot function if you know the truth. Now, instead of them giving you this little manual to read with your income tax return, your 1040, they give you a little pamphlet, don't they, a little booklet. Every year they send out the 1040s, and they give every taxpayer this little booklet of instructions. Now, they want you to read that. The reason they want you to read that is because they are not telling you the truth in that pamphlet. This one has the truth, so they don't want you to read it. So with that, we'll take that quick break here for a tape change, and we'll go on from there. I have talked about this. Now I'm going to talk on this side over here with my visual aid over here. I believe that most Americans will agree with me that our tax-consuming public servants lied to us about Pearl Harbor. I think most Americans would agree that they lied to us about Korea. They lied about Vietnam. They didn't tell us the truth about the energy shortage. They didn't tell us the truth. They haven't told us the truth about Social Security. We never had all of the covers taken off of the Watergate scandal. We were never told the truth about the Kennedy assassination. And I am absolutely convinced that if we go back and check the record, we will find that our public servants, our tax-consuming public servants, have not told us the truth on any major story or happening in this century. Go back to 1900 and start in 1900 and check the major stories that have happened, and I believe that if you will research those stories, you will find that the American people were not told the truth. Now, that's a pretty poor track record for truth. Now, one of the major lies that was taught to the American people came about through our government school system. In the government school system, they taught us, as I said before, they taught us about how the government was supposed to function, at least from the government point of view. And one of the things that they taught us was that our form of government is a democracy, where the majority rules. A majority-rule democracy, and we can rarely turn on the television news, but what we see some politician talking about our democracy, or they're talking about over in Russia how their President Yeltsin is trying to put together a democracy. Now, every place that we have tried to go in and create a democracy, those people have always had trouble. They say we have to protect this democracy thing, and they said we went into Vietnam and to help those people create a democracy over there, and what we did was create a tremendous mess. A lot of our good young American blood was shed over there on that foreign soil. It seems like we're not doing too well over in Somalia, and we're not doing too well in Haiti. We didn't do too well down in San Salvador. And every place we've gone trying to instill a democracy, we end up with chaos. Well, the reason for that is very simple, because a democracy has never worked in all of history. It has been tried, and it has been proven a failure every time that it has been tried, and it is a failure in this country, but they are still teaching the students in our schools, our government schools, that we have a democracy. Now, a democracy is a system that will not work. And I am here to explain to you why it won't work. And the way I do that is this. Most of you have heard the term pecking order. The biologists, they went out in the barnyard and they watched the chickens in the barnyard, and they came to the conclusion that every flock of chickens had a chicken that was dominating the entire flock. And each chicken in that society had its proper position. Each chicken knew where it belonged in that chicken society. Every herd of cows I've had coming from Montana and having a few cows of my own, I have recognized the fact that in every herd of cows you will have a boss cow, a dominant critter in that herd of cows.